for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, well, welcome, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. Hey, let's do this. It's Wednesday, January 16th, 2019, 16 days into the new year. 349 days left. That's right, we are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? What an amazing week on Fade to Black. Chad Kalick, Linda Moulton-Howe tonight. Dr. Robert M. Schoch is here. Now, the thing is, with Dr. Schoch, and this is no joke, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Very few people get a chance to change the world. Okay? We all dream about it. We grow up. We've got dreams of being a king of our own island and just going out there and knocking walls down, right? Robert Schoch and John Anthony West did just that. And when I bring on Dr. Schoch onto this show, it is such an honor and a privilege to sit down and have a conversation with him and get through his mind and his research and how he looks at the world. And he's doing it all for us. And that's what we are going to do tonight. His latest research. There is so much going on right now on this planet. And his research and what he does is the best. So tonight, it's Dr. Robert M. Schoch. Every time he's been on the show, the conversation has been just amazing and dynamic. And I've hit a couple of brick walls with him over the years, too, as well, where he just stopped and wouldn't let me go any further. Do you guys remember? It was like 5 years ago when he was talking about the Great Pyramid and the King's Chamber and how we spent the night, right? And I tried to get it. I wanted to know. And he shut me down. And I'm just here to tell you, it's been a long time, and I still don't know. I still don't know. And I'm just going to let that go. You know, some things are just personal and private, and that's your experience. And I tried because I haven't been to the Great Pyramid. I haven't been to Giza. I know that Rita and I will get out there. Tried to do it this year in 2019. It doesn't look like we're going to pull that off. We've got a couple of trips planned outside of the United States, and unfortunately, Egypt isn't one of them. But getting into the King's Chamber, climbing into that sarcophagus alone, right? Or the box, let's just call it the box, and trying to shut your eyes and get through the night. Can you imagine? Right? Well, That's his experience. And I can't take, that's it. That's it. But I tried, though. I tried. So tonight, Dr. Robert M. Schoch is here, and I can't wait for the conversation tonight. Tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. The call-in numbers. Oh, you know what? I'm going to announce the call-in numbers tomorrow because we are going through a phone installation here. And I don't even know if we're going to have our phone numbers imported by tomorrow. We may have a temporary. That's a whole nother thing. So I'll announce the phone numbers tomorrow. All right. Now, I'm a big social media guy. I love my social media. And you can go now, jimmychurchradio.com, click on all those little things that say like on Stellar, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is right there. Go follow, like, and subscribe. When you get over to On Stellar, send me a friend request, okay? Everything over at Facebook is locked up. I've got a lot of stuff that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow on the show, and so just stand by for that. But I'm going to talk about Google, Facebook, On Stellar, and data tomorrow on the show, and another pretty big announcement from CERN. Yeah, and we should be concerned. All right. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. Simple. jchurchradio. At jchurchradio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. And if you have any questions or comments, all you have to do is use hashtag F2BQ. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Let's get into this breaking news because in a few short minutes, we will be joined by Alec Hoffman from Hoffman's Optics. So stand by for that. We're going to get to it here shortly. But breaking news, got a lot of it here. So let's get through it. As officials from both the United States and North Korea tried to set up a second summit between President Donald Trump and Kim Fatty Fat, North Korea has once again reaffirmed its commitment to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. Yesterday, I had announced the arrival tomorrow of a North Korean official, don't know who it is, who will spend the night in Washington, D.C., don't know where, and possibly meet with President Trump. But we don't know. Right? And before you get all too excited, North Korea today also said this, and I quote, "The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula should be defined as completely eliminating the U.S. nuclear threat to Korea before it can eliminate our nuclear deterrent." End quote. Kim Fatty Fat. All right, check this out. Incredible story today. American businessman Jason Spindler survived the September 11th attacks in New York, only to die this week in another act of terror. The business investment advisor was among those killed yesterday in their terror attack on Dusit D2, a Kenyan hotel compound. Unbelievable. He was working World Trade Center when everything went down, survived, and turns around and gets gunned down in Kenya. Unbelievable. All right. Now, I'm a big conspiracy guy. That's what I do, right? And I love reporting breaking news of the conspiracy side. And then I've got this next story because it's about the Ford Mustang. And when I have Mustang breaking news, I will bring it to you on every single show because Ford just unveiled the most powerful factory-produced Mustang the company has ever made at the Detroit Auto Show this past Monday. The new Shelby GT500 has a supercharged V8 engine that is producing more than 700 horsepower. That's right. And this isn't some modified Mustang done by a third party, right? They built some. No. This is a GT500 built by Ford. No price announced yet, but hey, a man can dream, right? Right? Murph Goodrich, right? Everybody can have dreams. Yeah. Tomorrow night, I will be talking about, on Fader Night, about CERN's new plan for an even bigger collider. That's right. Bigger than the LHC. And it's not just bigger. It's ginormous frigging huge. And I've seen a couple of illustrations of the proposed plans. And you know how big CERN is. You know how big the LHC is, right? Okay? Right? This thing, if that is CERN, this is the new one. Right? This one goes around a village, crosses over between Switzerland and France. This one is like that. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Couple quick announcements. This Sunday, we will be at the Crystal Matrix. This Sunday, January 20th, we're going to be hanging out with Carolyn Ford and Einstein the Crystal Skull. The address is 3215 Glendale Boulevard in Atwater Village, right here in Southern California. You need to call and make reservations. That phone number is 323-644-7625. You can also go to thecrystalmatrix.com. It's right there, 3215 Glendale Boulevard. And then the week after that, I will be at the NAMM show, Friday, January 25th in Anaheim, California, at the Anaheim Convention Center. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll be posting on Twitter where I am at all day in real time. So we'll see you at the NAMM show, Friday, January 25th. Now, come join us right after that for the 2019 Conscious Life Expo right here in Los Angeles at the LAX Hilton, February 22nd through February 25th. This year celebrating the 50th anniversary of Chariots of the Gods. Linda Moulton-Howe's going to be there. Billy Carson, of course, Eric Von Daniken, George Norrie, Nassim Haramein. Our guest tonight, Robert Schoch. Alec Hoffman, who's going to be joining me in just a minute. He's going to be there too. All right, so come and hang out with us. ConsciousLifeExpo.com. We've got a banner up over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Click on it. Tickets, full conference schedule right there. And then coming up next after that, May 31st through June 3rd, Contact in the Desert. Just go to contactinthedesert.com. We've got a full weekend of events that I will be hosting. And so go and check that out right now, contactinthedesert.com. After that, man, what a busy year we have. Our 2019 Soul Tech Conference is over the July 4th weekend up at the Sunrise Ranch in Loveland, Colorado. You can sign up now. You have to go to soultechgathering.com and sign up. All the tickets will be sold on a first-come, first-served basis off of that waiting list. And I'm here to tell you right now, it's full. I'm telling you, you've got to go and get your name on that mailing list. I'm just letting you know right now. Okay? We're happy, but I don't want anybody to be bummed out. Get over to soultechgathering.com. Sign up on that waiting list. Okay? All right. Where am I at? Let's get all of this stuff out of the way. Happy birthday to today, John Carpenter. He is 70 years old. And on this day in history, God, what a crazy day in history. 1919, America goes dry, prohibition. They tried to take our alcohol away from us. Well, they did. 1942, Carol Lombard is killed in a crash when her plane veers off course in Las Vegas and into the top of Potosi Mountain, right there between Las Vegas and Pahrump, Nevada. Some say there was a UFO connection to that crash. Then in 1979, the Shah flees Iran. And then in 1991, Bush was waiting up for the midnight deadline with Iraq. And you know what happened on the next day, on January 17th? Two things happened on January 17th. One, we invaded Iraq. Desert Storm begins. And two, I'll talk about this tomorrow on the show, it was the earthquake right here in Southern California. Yeah, the Northridge earthquake. I will never forget it. Here's your fader fact. The cigarette lighter was invented before the match. Go and figure that out. Did you hear what I just said? The cigarette lighter was invented before the match. Now, that sounds to me like you could go and turn that into a parlay. You could bet that and win, right? Think about that. All right, tonight, Robert M. Schoch is here. Tomorrow night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. And now I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Alec Hoffman of Hoffman's Optics. Alec, good evening, my man. How are you?
Good evening. Doing fine, Jimmy. Thank you.
Hey, do you have me on speakerphone? Take me off speaker. Can't have me on speaker. No speaker.
Okay, I'm off.
See, there you go. There you go. Because we can hear, when you do that, Alec, we can hear the ginormous offices of Hoffman Optics. It's the giant marble-lined lobby where your receptionist is sitting, and everybody gets to hear that. So, yeah, it's better not to be on speaker. So, Alec, welcome back to the program. Congratulations on not only the success of Hoffman's Optics, but for all that you have done for this community for so many years now. Night vision is your life. And before you introduce, I look at you, and I know that everybody is using night vision now. Everybody's doing sky watches and night watches. But you were the one that brought this to the UFO community, right?
That's right. That's right, Jimmy.
And, you know, the thing is, did you know that you were going to change everything? You know, the way that so many enthusiasts out there look at the skies now. You know, night vision is what everybody talks about and wants and desires because they know that things are going on up in the sky. But it was you, you know, that brought this to the UFO community. And I got to thank you for that. Most people don't know.
Thank you, Jimmy, very much. Yes, it's my passion. I never thought about, you know, just bring something new. I just did, you know, just what I love to do. I share this with UFO followers. I love it, and I do it from the bottom of my heart, and it turned to be my business, and I bring actually something new to, you know, just people, and they can see in invisible spectrum. So I'm, you know, thrilled to help people.
Now, you have, when everybody visits hoffmansoptics.com, which is a great website, and there's a lot of information there, but you have you have three basic product lines that need some definition here. You have the Orion, you have the Roswell, and then you have the Area 52 Jimmy Church edition, which is very cool. I like the name. The name is really cool. But take us through the product line really quick, simply because I want to talk to you about some other stuff. What is the Orion?
Orion, basically, it's a basic line, very affordable, of night vision. We have digital day-night recording camera, which Aurora, for $799. It's absolutely affordable and works beautifully at night and day as well. And Generation 2, I'm using Generation 2 for monoculars and goggles. That's why it's basically affordable without breaking bank. Roswell is a Generation 3. It's a notch up. Basically, you know, just for people who can afford. What you actually see, you can see 80,000 plus times versus naked eye. On the other hand, Generation 2 enhance each particle of light up to 60,000 times. It's absolutely will do job and perfect for budget system. And Area 52, Jimmy Church, I was working with you 4 years ago. You asked me, what can you do to bring something different for you, for family? So we design revolutionary, and nobody in the world has this stuff, technology. It's a deep blue night vision. And yesterday we built first unit in absolutely gorgeous, nice, crisp picture. I'm going to introduce this system actually at Contact in the Desert.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm going to be at Soltech in Colorado with you. So I'm going to do a Skywatch show as always. So if people actually would like to check in and for Skywatch show, please do so at Contact in the Desert website. And I'll be there. So everybody will have experience of different color of night vision and prior to purchase.
Now,
and of course, I'm going to run special prices.
And it's not just, and thank you for that. And it's not just the color, and we can talk about that too as well. But there are other features here that isn't anywhere else that you and I sat down and needed to. There were things that I wanted on these goggles. And you said, absolutely, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And what are some of these features that are on the Area 52 that nobody else has?
First of all, we have currently universal cell phone adapter attaching to eyepiece, universal, just any cell phone, whatever model is, and you can record video and share with community. But we are planning to have internal recording system, which already done in blueprints. And right now we have prototype, but we are working right now on the software. The whole hardware is done, so we need to actually finish software. Hopefully, it will be done by Contact in the Desert, but we'll see what's going to happen. But good things coming to those who wait.
And what about the amplifiers?
Amplifiers, basically, that will be, the whole features will be built in, and we are working right now to enhance with infrared illuminator, not lasers, maybe even lasers, but in certain wavelengths. It's called 802 nanometer wavelengths, so they would not harm pilots. So we can we're trying to incorporate with unit as well, those lasers.
And you're also going to be at Contact in the Desert. We're going to be doing a night watch, a sky watch out there each night. So that's going to happen. But also, you're going to be hanging out a little bit at the Conscious Life Expo, too, as well, next month?
Absolutely. I'll be there.
And the reason why I'm suggesting this, everybody's going to be at Contact in the Desert, and it's such a huge event. And I have seen the most remarkable things out there with hundreds of people, and we've had so much fun year after year. But for this product launch with Hoffman's Optics, anybody that's going to be at Conscious Life Expo, come by our Fade to Black booth, and I'll be there. Alec will be there, and we'll have some of the products there where you can check it out, and you'll be able to, if you wish, not only get yourself some night vision goggles, but get ready for Contact in the Desert. It only makes sense. And then right after that, Soltech. So you'll be able to have your night vision goggles and enjoy an entire season of conferences out there. Of course, the highlight being Contact in the Desert out there in Palm Springs.
Yes, Jimmy. And I would like to mention, please, if somebody has any questions regarding night vision, feel free to call me at 866-800-6722. Again, 866-800-6722, or drop me a line, info@hoffmansoptics.com.
And what's really great, and I say this all the time, Alec, to all of the Fadernauts out there, when I say call Alec, Alec is a Fadernaut. If anybody calls Alec and wants to talk about Fade to Black, get some secret info on Rita's cooking, any of that stuff, Alec is the guy. Alec understands the Fadernauts better than anybody, and he'll sit and help you not only through the right product that is for you, but you guys can talk UFOs, you guys can talk about Fade to Black. He is one of us, and Alec, you are a member of this family.
Yes, I am, and I'm proud to be a member of UFO family. And thank you so much, Jimmy.
Now, you know what's really great, Alec? Every time that I see you, you're wearing one of our T-shirts.
It's like, what? I love those shirts.
I
just love those stories.
It's absolutely amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the sky watches that we're going to be doing out at Contact in the Desert this year. How many nights are we going to do? What, 3-4 nights of sky watches? 3 nights?
We're going to do actually. They plan to do only on a weekend, a Saturday and Sunday, but I was actually talking to management, and I said I would like to do Friday as well. So when people are arriving, there will be more entertainment.
Yeah, well, see, what I want to do, I've got a little pull with Contact in the Desert, and so do you, right? So this is what we should do. We have Fade to Black on Friday night, right? And that's going to run at 10 o'clock, and then I've got to go out and have a couple of drinks after the show and loosen up a little bit. But I think we should all get together, figure out something for Friday night for the Fadernauts where we can all get together and go hang out on Friday night. That's what I want to do.
I like that, and we're going to talk to management. I think, just we can actually extend Skywatch till probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You will have enough time to have your drink and take care of your chores, and then maybe you can join us and, just work with us and see what we're going to see.
See, right now, they're listening, right? Contact in the Desert. I know they're listening. So we're going to hang up, right? I'm going to break to commercial. Your phone's going to ring. It's going to be, what are you doing? You're going to keep our staff up till 2 o'clock in the morning? Is that one? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Alec, thank you so much, man. And I'm so proud of our relationship with you and your company and the Area 52, and my name is on it. I will stand by it, but I'm just so proud. And you've done everything that I've dreamed about, and you've responded to that, and that's very rare today. Thank you so much, Alec, and enjoy the rest of your night, my friend.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to be at your show, and looking forward to see you at Contact in the Desert.
We'll see you, man, and behave and be well.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's Alec Hoffman of Hoffman's Optics. It's hoffmansoptics.com. The links are at jimmychurchradio.com. And the phone number, and it's very simple, 866-800-6722. 866-800-6722. The website is hoffmansoptics.com. And go and check it out right now. The Area 52, the blue phosphor Jimmy Church model. I'll be right back with our guest tonight, Dr. Robert M. Schoch. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on jimmychurchradio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, folks. Guess what the number one phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church. And whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great week on the show. Seriously, an amazing week. And tonight it's Robert Schoch. He is with us. Tomorrow night will be Fader night. Open lines all night long. So there you go. This weekend we will be over at the Crystal Matrix on Sunday here in Southern California in Atwater Village. And we'll see everybody over there on Sunday. Tonight, it's Dr. Robert M. Schoch. He's a full-time faculty member at the College of General Studies at Boston University, all the way back since 1984. Earned his Ph.D. in Geology and Geophysics at Yale University, his M.S. and M.Phil in Geology and Geophysics from Yale, as well as degrees in Anthropology, B.A., Geology, B.S., from George Washington University. In the early 1990s, Dr. Schoch, along with John Anthony West, they recast the date of the Great Sphinx of Egypt from 2600 BC all the way back to around 10,500 BC by demonstrating the monument has been heavily eroded by water, despite the fact that its location on the edge of the Sahara has endured hyper-arid climatic conditions for the past 5,000 years. Dr. Schoch revealed to the world that mankind's history is greater and older than previously believed. And tonight, we're going to cover not only his latest research, and we've got a lot of stuff to go into about our past and lost civilizations, but we're going to talk about the latest news out of Giza in Egypt. And his website, of course, is robertschoch.com. I would like to welcome back to the show Dr. Robert M. Schoch. Robert, good evening, man. How are you?
Oh, very good. Good evening to you. It's great to be back.
So you're in Boston. I'm in L.A., and I bet it's colder out here.
Probably. And you're getting all that rain.
It's nasty out here. And so as a geologist, and you've written so much and studied about erosion, and we're going through the rain here like we are. And when you go through, do you go out and look at water flows? Do you look at erosion?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I look at erosion, water flows. I've actually taken some fairly physical risks to look at such things. In some cases, during major storms and tsunamis. I remember being in Japan once for a tsunami on the little island of Yonaguni. I had to go down to the cliff faces and look over, and I thought that my colleagues were with me, and then I looked back, and they're, way up away from me. I thought they were following me. I was fascinated by what was happening with the weathering and the storms. But it can get dangerous, and I will tell you, I've been in situations where I'm driving down a road, or I remember once being in Peru on a little train, and I'm looking up at the sides of the hills, and I can see that there are landslides just about to happen. When I say as a geologist, just about to happen, it could take another 10 years, it could take another 5 years, or it could be as we pass by. You have very much the same situation there, especially with the fires, which have denuded the hills and taken all the vegetation, which is destabilized.
Right,
You've got a bad situation.
Yeah,
very bad situation.
It's so cyclical out here. It seems like we go through the same thing year after year, where there's no rain. Then everything dries out. We go through the fires, and then the rain comes, and all the hillsides are stripped away of all the vegetation. So then we got to deal with the mudslides, and then it's like rinse and repeat, right? And then we just do it all over again.
It's not a place where people should live.
Now, I wanted to...
I don't mean that nastily. I meant that from a geological point of view. It's not... because I've seen some of the pictures recently. I saw, I think, on the news earlier today or on the internet, saw a big mudslide with boulders in it that had come down over a road.
Yep.
Either you have to deal with it and accept it as it is, but you're not going to change it from nature's point of view.
Now, you just mentioned this is what's really funny. I'm going to make this really quick because I want your reaction to this. You and I, we've sat and we've talked so much, and we agree on so much, and I've learned so much from you. But there's one thing where you and I just don't agree, and that's Yonaguni. Yonaguni. Yep.
Oh, Yonaguni. Yonaguni.
You and I...
Okay, and actually I was mentioning Yonaguni just now because that ties in with what we were just talking about. What you have at Yonaguni, and I don't know if everyone's familiar with it, but you have these underwater structures. I'll call it structures, but I'm using that non-definitively. That doesn't mean they're artificial, as I'm using the term. You can have natural geological structures, and I'm convinced that it's primarily natural underwater. And the way the rock breaks out, it is faulted. It's heavily faulted. I'm talking now geology. It's got these cracks in it that are formed by the earthquakes that occur there. It's a very active tectonic area. In fact, I could tell you a lot of fun stories about that. I've been there 4 times and up to 2 weeks at a time diving at that type of thing. And I am convinced that it's primarily a natural structure underwater. Now, there's lots of evidence for human habitation on the island going back to a very remote period, going back to the end of the last ice age. When you're on one end of Yonaguni, you can actually see Taiwan on a clear day, literally see Taiwan. And recently, because you were talking about recent research, there's now information that's come out that, in fact, when you look at the topography, underwater topography between Yonaguni and Taiwan, at one point during the late ice age, the sea levels were low enough that there was actually a land bridge between them, and I do believe there was interchange, etc. So there were ancient people living on Yonaguni, and when sea levels were lower, a lot of these structures were exposed, and I believe that they were using them. They may have even slightly modified them, but it's not a pyramid, in my assessment, built artificially. And that gets back to what we were just talking about. When I was there for one of the trips, there was actually a small tsunami. I mean, it was big enough to, cause a lot of damage. And I actually went out to the cliffs of Yonaguni to see for myself how the rocks were being split and broken off in huge chunks and being carried away and forming this incredible step-like square topography, but forming it naturally.
I look at this now. You've scuba, you've been there, and I understand that. But
I know when you look at just pictures of it from remotely, when you haven't looked at the entire site, and you see how the very regular, even what looks like cut marks then grades into what everyone would agree is natural, and there's all the gradations in between, and the very strong currents that sweep out the debris, and then you can find that elsewhere, etc. I mean, it's a remarkable site. It's an absolutely remarkable site. When I first was on my way there on the airplane, actually, you mentioned John Anthony West. My first trip there was with John Anthony West.
Right.
We went together. We both learned to scuba dive before we went there so we could scuba dive on it, because that's the only way you can see it. I mean, I was already writing the scientific paper, and I just was going there to confirm and get the final pieces of evidence. But everything changed when I saw it on, well, I was going to say on the ground, underwater, when I saw it underwater for myself.
Yeah,
it was, I don't want to say it wasn't disappointing, because it was disappointing.
It's beautiful.
And I would love it to be, the definitive evidence of ancient structures to that remote period in that part of Asia. I mean, I would love that, but you know me. I mean, we've talked about this before. I have to go with the evidence as I see it, and it just doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
But there's a shot, Robert. There's a shot. Yeah, there's a shot. You're in your scuba gear. You're underwater, and clearly over your shoulder on the wall is carved. It says, "Watch your step." I mean, didn't that? Didn't that say anything to you? I mean,
I wish. But if I could not change the subject, but change the subject just a little bit, Yonaguni is one thing, and I'm not convinced by it. But then we do have on Java, and I've been there to see this site, we have on Java the site of Gunung Padang.
Right.
Which is absolutely, in my assessment, in my opinion, looking at the evidence, the real thing, going back to the same remote period, even earlier possibly, based on radiocarbon dating and geophysical work that Danny Hillman Natajawawa has been working on, if I pronounce his Indonesian name correctly. He goes by Danny Hillman. So maybe Yonaguni, in my opinion, didn't pan out, but we have another site from the same general area, Indonesia,
right?
In this case, versus Japan, and I have no doubt whatsoever, and I've been talking about this for actually decades now, that, we probably have a center of early civilization in that part of the world, just as we do in Egypt, just as we do in Turkey, etc. And all of this builds up a larger picture that there was what I call an earlier cycle of civilization that existed at the end of the last ice age. So we have good evidence, in my assessment. At Gunung Padang, we have incredible evidence, and with Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which you and I have talked about quite a bit.
Right.
We have the evidence in Egypt from the Sphinx. But I'm not going to personally dilute that, if I could use that term, with things that are questionable like Yonaguni, or things that are totally bogus. And I'm just calling it the way I see it with, for instance, the so-called Bosnian pyramids. I only think about that because someone wrote to me about that today and asked my opinion once again on the so-called Bosnian pyramids.
I've never done a show. I've never done a show on the Bosnian pyramids. I haven't been sold. And
don't do a show on them. You know that I tend to be very honest, and I don't like to take any kind of negative view on things or belittle other people, and if I do, I apologize right away, hopefully. But the Bosnian pyramids, they are not what some people claim they are.
What would it take to change your mind on Yonaguni?
Oh, I would have to find some really definitive evidence that those were artificial structures. I would have to find
a doorway. Would a doorway work?
Well, a doorway, or maybe something where you have stones that have actually been built and stacked together. What you have is bedrock that has been
shifted,
pulled apart, sort
right.
of. It almost looks like an ancient quarry. In fact, many people, including myself, have suggested tentatively maybe it could have been part an ancient quarry. But I'm not even convinced of that. And people say it's right angles and it's so smooth and perfect. Well, actually, when you go underwater and you look at it directly, it's not. The angles are not perfectly right angles. They follow the fault lines. They follow the bedding. I'm using geological terms, but they follow the bedding of the rock. I mean, it unfortunately for the ancient civilization, from the ancient civilization point of view, it fits natural geology. Is it stupendous, incredible natural geology? Yes. Do you get somewhat similar things elsewhere? Yes. Do you get anything precisely like that elsewhere? No. But is every geological formation, every geological structure on Earth unique at some level? Yes. This is a part of geology. That's why you can take a little rock sample, and if you have enough data and you do the analysis, you can say, oh, this rock came from this quarry in this country, et cetera, et cetera. And they do that, for instance, with artwork, sculptures and whatnot. Everything in geology is unique to a certain level. So when people say to me, oh, well, there's nothing exactly like Yonaguni elsewhere, therefore it must be artificial. No, that doesn't work. That's not the way geology is.
The other part about Yonaguni, though, you just suggested that there's a possibility it may be an ancient quarry. Well, yeah, that would be significant, too, as well, wouldn't it?
That would be significant. And actually, I'm not convinced it's an ancient quarry, but what I am convinced of, and a lot of people miss this when they hear me say something and then I don't say exactly what they want to hear, which is that, oh, yeah, this is an ancient pyramid underwater and proves ancient civilization there and part of Mu or Lemuria or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced that, based on the evidence, that people were inhabiting that island at this remote period. On the island, on the surface, there are tombs, for instance. There are what they now call tombs, ancient tombs. Some of them are more modern. They are still being used, but some of them are very, very ancient. And when you look at those tombs, they are absolutely human-constructed, carved out of the bedrock, actually carved out of different formations of bedrock than the underwater structures, but they are, I am convinced, carved in ancient times to essentially mimic, if you would, the underwater structures. So what I'm saying is that just like we ooh and awe at the Grand Canyon or the Man in the Mountain, natural formations, that type of thing, and even make copies of them, I think the ancient people were incredibly impressed by what they saw at Yonaguni, which we're still impressed by, and they were even imitating it to a certain extent. I've also hypothesized that when this was above water, more or less sea levels were lower, they may have used Yonaguni as some kind of platform or staging ground. Did they maybe modify it very slightly? I'm not opposed to that concept. What I'm opposed to, or what I'm saying the evidence indicates to me, is that it's not in total or even primarily artificial structure. I'm not denying that humans were there in ancient times and admiring it, using it, imitating it. It's not really a black and white issue. There's a lot of gray area in there.
Now,
am I making sense?
Yes, and it in a way it kind of bums me out. But the thing is, let
me throw something else out before. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
One thing you have to remember or think about, especially when you go to the Far East, and we're talking modern Japan and China, just off the coast of China and Taiwan, they have a very, very long tradition of admiring nature, imitating nature. You think of like Zen gardens and
right
that type of thing. And
sure.
I think actually at Yonaguni you can trace this tradition back to a very remote period. And I think that's sort of neat. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Something bummed you out.
Well, in that we see things and we all want the fantastical to possibly break through and be true. Parallel worlds, time travel, and something like Yonaguni is right there, and it's the same. But Yonaguni to me looks very real, as opposed to the Bosnian pyramid. I look at that and it's a hill.
Oh, absolutely. The Bosnian pyramids don't even look real, and that's in part because they're not real, number one, and you've got huge, huge hills which only from certain angles sort of maybe look like something, and then when they're bulldozed and carved up with backhoes, little sections sort of maybe look like something. The thing about Yonaguni is you've never seen it. I don't mean this to sound the wrong way, but it's very hard to see in photographs. You've actually not seen it unless you've not only dived it, but dived the extent of it. If someone puts you down in one little spot on Yonaguni, underwater, I'm talking scuba, and then doesn't let you explore the whole structure, it could be very convincing, even right in front of you. But when you start looking at how it grades in and you actually start exploring the geology with background in the type of rock it is, that type of thing, it's something else comes out. I'll say one more thing about it right now. I could not even see the rock on my first dive or two. Why? Because it's all covered with what I call organic scum as a geologist. It's covered with organisms. It's covered with corals and sea squirts or whatever they call them, sponges, that type of thing. It's sort of like if you took something that's a bit rougher and then you took cement, a thin layer of cement, and put it over it and smoothed everything over, and it would make it look much nicer and neater. That's essentially what's happened.
Are you suggesting
naturally at Yonaguni? So it gives even more of the impression that it's artificial structure. And then you have things like, quote, post holes. People have thought they saw post holes, which are very regularly spaced, et cetera, et cetera. I've looked at those in detail. What they are is along a joint or a fracture in the rock, little organisms will burrow in and they'll make their little home, and they'll actually erode the rock away, and they'll make a hole basically where they're living. And it's very common in biology and marine biology, they space themselves very evenly because they have their own little territory. We'll use that term loosely. And so they make what look like very regular structures. In geology and biology, you get regularities and patterns all the time, and they look artificial to the untrained eye. It's an incredible sight. I would never discourage anyone from going there. It's one of the wonders of the world. It just is more natural than artificial in my assessment.
Well, we will continue to disagree, but
you have to go there. We should take a trip there and dive together. Wouldn't that be fun?
We should take a trip, and I want to clarify.
And we could do your radio show from underwater.
Oh man, that would be so cool.
I'm not even joking, because they do have these things where you can talk and whatnot.
Does Katie scuba dive?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay,
but
neither
she
does
can
Rita.
learn. She can learn. It's not hard. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Well,
I'm not a water type.
Her and Rita could produce the show from on deck. But
I know she does plenty of snorkeling and that type of thing. So scuba is not that far from it. I mean, actually, I find scuba diving easier than more. I find it easier to scuba dive than to snorkel personally.
Now, we've got 2 minutes before the break, and I need some clarification from you. You said earlier, sort of, maybe, about 3 times. Is that an academic term, Robert?
Yeah, what we do when we're in academia, we say sort of maybe when we don't want to be totally committal, because it always sounds bad when an academic is totally committed to something, because that's not the way we are. We always look for evidence. We're always open to changing our mind. So John West used to make fun of me for this. He said, I'd talk about my hypothesis. Well, my working hypothesis. Well, that's what I believe at the moment, but I'm open to changing my mind if evidence comes in that merits rethinking something.
Sort of, maybe. Man, I can't wait to use it.
That's the colloquial version. How's that?
I can't wait to use that in a sentence. Now, when we come back after the break, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to get to all of the latest news out of Giza. There's a ton of it, because we're going to spend the rest of the show talking about what happened 12,000 years ago. We've got to talk about the end of the last ice age, all of your latest research. There's a lot of stuff to get through. And when we come back after the break, we'll start with Giza. You ready to go?
Ready.
Let's do this. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert M. Schoch. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. And I did see up on Twitter the Lego Area 51 set. And I got to know, is that real? Because if it is, Rita, I need some Legos. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. More with Dr. Schoch right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas. Come join us for the 2019 Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles at the LAX Hilton. This year, we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Chariots of the Gods with Eric Von Daniken, and I'll be hosting the panel with Eric, Linda Moulton Howe, Jason Martell, Billy Carson, and join George Norrie, Nassim Haramein, Robert Schoch, Daniel Brinkley, Grant Cameron, Julia Mossbridge, and another 50 speakers who will be presenting at the 2019 Conscious Life Expo. Just go to ConsciousLifeExpo.com for tickets and a full conference schedule, or click on the CLE banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
buddy. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, our guest, Dr. Robert M. Schoch. What a great name, Robert M. Schoch. It's perfect for me. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And Dr. Schoch has a Twitter account he hasn't used in about 15 years since the start of Twitter. But we have it up there. It is Dr. Robert M. Schoch, and we have it up there on Twitter. Maybe you'll pay attention to Twitter these days. It's going to be huge. They say that Twitter might get big, Dr. Schoch. Now,
it might get big, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll believe that when the President of the United States starts
using it. I'm with you on that. We'll have to wait and see. And now check this out. And I love a good conspiracy. This one involves you. A couple of months ago, I had a guest on the show that just got back from Egypt and Giza and reported back to me live on the air with this, saying that they were traveling south into Saqqara, right? Off of the plateau. And then off to their right, still in Giza, off to their right is a NASA warehouse that says NASA on the side of it with NASA trucks. And then they started to notice NASA trucks next to the Great Pyramid. That's your answer?
I don't know. What did they know anything? Did they give any more information? That type of thing?
That's what I depend on.
NASA. The U.S. is NASA.
Yes.
That's very interesting. I don't know. How long ago was this?
2 months ago. Just got back.
2 months ago. Wow.
Now you're going to be out there.
I'm going to be out there in May and June.
You're going to be out there in May and June. You're going to do some filming too as well.
I hope so. Yes.
Okay, and
because we're working on a documentary with Jim Fields, who you and I have spoken about this off the air, and we're going to put together a documentary with Jim Fields who is an award-winning filmmaker, and this is with Oracle, the Organization for the Research of Ancient Cultures, the nonprofit, and we're very excited about this project.
Yeah, he is really, really good. And for everybody out there, Jim Fields was the director of the Ramones documentary that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and End of the Century.
End of the Century. It is a tremendous film. He is so talented. And so do me a favor, make sure that he gets a shot of that NASA warehouse.
Well, if we find it and if it's still there and we're allowed to get a shot of it, we will. I have to be careful, though, because you've not been to Egypt. You've never been to Egypt.
No.
You have got to come to Egypt with me sometime.
I
with
will
Katie
do that.
And I, you and Rita, and maybe some of the, what do you call it, the Fadernauts?
The Fadernauts.
To come along. Yeah, we could have a Fadernaut Egypt trip sometime.
I can't wait for that. I
I'm
cannot
serious.
wait.
I'm serious.
serious,
you will have a great time. But one thing you'll learn is that you do have to be careful in Egypt, and sometimes they do not like things photographed or filmed. So you have to be careful about that.
They're going to hate me, the selfie king. So, and you too as well. You've always got the camera at the ready. So
I know. I take pictures of everything. But in Egypt, I am careful, and you don't take pictures of military installations, that type of thing.
No, you're going to be
on the tourist sites. They're usually they're usually good about it, but they will tell you bluntly if you can't take pictures of this and that. In the past, it was sometimes they simply didn't want you to take pictures because they want to sell postcards or books. It was as simple as that.
Well, you're going to be out there in May, and we just had this in June. Just had this terrorist bombing of a tourist bus there in Giza.
Yeah.
Still in the city. It wasn't like it was at the base of the pyramids.
No.
But nonetheless, are you concerned about safety?
Well, no. I think you always have to be concerned about safety anywhere you go. That includes America, because I don't want to get off on a tangent, but we certainly have issues in America. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I was born in Washington, D.C., so I've always been wary, that type of thing, and I'm certainly that way when traveling in other countries, including Egypt. But to the specific point, it's a horrible thing what happened in terms of the bombing. It was a bomb that went off. It was late last year, just before, a couple of days before New Year. And I know exactly where it occurred. I looked it up immediately. I'm familiar with the area. It's not somewhere someone like myself would ever go personally, or certainly not take tours personally. I don't know why that tourist bus was there. It was a bomb, as I understand, that was planted in or behind a wall, so that was concealed. It was a place where there wasn't as much military security as there is other places. Egypt is really a very, very secure country. It's a very safe country in my assessment. When something like this happens, it's a horrible, horrible situation. But it's not the norm in Egypt. It really is not the norm in Egypt. And as soon as it happened, within, 24 hours or less, the government knew what was going on. They researched it. They cracked down. They actually, I hate even thinking of it this way, but 40 terrorists were killed in essentially what it considers a war. They have a war, internal war against terrorists and terrorism. And in Egypt, it's always been the case that they crack down hard, I think rightfully so, to keep their country stable and safe. So in my assessment, and I've been going back and forth to Egypt for 3 decades now, I think it's as safe as it's ever been, in fact, safer than it has been in many years at this immediate point in time.
Now, what is interesting for me that in this audience, with your research, when you go back to the original stuff that you did with John Anthony West, Jaws, and you started to run into these dates, others out there, Robert Bivall and, of course, Graham Hancock and others, started to look at this very consistent date of 10,500 BC. Of course, Göbekli Tepe comes into play, and this date starts to spread around the world in different regions, different civilizations, different cultures. This date now is very, very consistent, and it not only coincides your original research going back with John Anthony West, but it's now out there. It's almost to the point now that it is an accepted date of something that happened here on this planet, not only throughout our community, but in academia. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it makes me feel good, I guess. I mean, that people are really recognizing this, and more importantly, I do care that people recognize it. That's nice, etc. But what's really important is exactly what you said, that you have this consistency of the evidence around the world. And I believe that the consistency of the evidence is that we have a high civilization, a cycle of civilization, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the last ice age. That's the 10,000 to 10,500 BC you're citing. And that all collapses shortly thereafter. When I say shortly thereafter, based on Greenland ice cores, we can now date it very precisely to 9,700 BC, which is the end of the last ice age, which is also the same time that Plato, way back when, said that Atlantis collapsed, or Atlantis was destroyed by natural cataclysms. So you've got everything from Plato, which, when I was a graduate student, people would laugh if you would take Plato seriously. But now I think we do have to acknowledge that he is talking the same time frame that modern science and modern archaeology and modern analyses of linguistic evidence, modern analyses of archaeoastronomy. Robert Bauval, of course, comes in heavily there as a real founder of the current wave of archaeoastronomy, even though it goes back to the 19th century. All of this evidence, ancient mythologies, and tracing back the origins of ancient mythologies, it all goes back to that period of about 9,000. I would place it about 9,700 BC, back to about 10,500 as you're citing that period. There was major civilization, sophistication on the planet Earth that was devastated and
well, it's gotten to the point
destroyed at 9,700 BC. Zep-Tepi. Were you starting to say Zep-Tepi?
It's gotten to, yes, and it's gotten to the point where when I start to read an article or I hear a researcher say, we've been looking into this, and it's like I can already hear the year. Right? I can already hear it. Everything keeps pointing back to this, which takes us to this crater up in Greenland. Now, I want to spend some time on this.
Yeah. So Zep-Tepi, but I wanted to mention Zep-Tepi just because I thought you said it, but maybe you weren't saying it. But this is what the Egyptians called this early period. Zep-Tepi, the beginning, when I say the Egyptians, the dynastic Egyptians of going back 5,000 or so years ago, 4,500, 5,000 years ago, they were talking about this earlier period that, all the Egyptologists, all the historians had dismissed as, again, the same level as Atlantis and Plato. It's just a myth. But it turns out we now have evidence for it.
And when we go to the Builder's script and we start to talk about that, where other researchers out there, even professional academics, will go, well, even in Egypt, they don't talk about the flood myth. They don't refer to Atlantis. Well, yes, they did.
Well, yes, they did. That's where it comes from.
That's where it comes from. So, but back to Greenland, because when the news broke on this about 3 weeks ago, and I start to read the article, like I just said, I somehow felt. Right, and then right there, 12,000 years ago is part of the breaking news.
Yeah, but that's misleading, because you also get what becomes a cycle of everyone then jumps on this date, and if they don't have a date for something, then they put it at that date, and that's not necessarily real. The Hiawatha crater that you're talking about under the Greenland ice that had been known for some time but now has really been analyzed, etc., it's Pleistocene, and we know that's Pleistocene based on stratigraphy, etc. That doesn't mean it's necessarily this period. I mean, well, the Pleistocene covers about 2.5 million years, roughly, and it could be anywhere in that. Is it probably later in the Pleistocene? Yes, but it's not necessarily terminal Pleistocene. It's not necessarily this period. This gets into the whole issue of what brought this cycle to an end, what caused the end of the last ice age, et cetera, and then you get into the impact hypothesis proponents, which has now been circulating for about a dozen years, and evidence whether there was an impactor or not. When I say impactor, a meteorite or asteroid or something like that, comet. They're all variations on a theme. And recently with the Hiawatha crater in Greenland, a lot of people have jumped on that and say, oh, well, this is the evidence of the impact. This is the crater from it, or one of the craters from it. But the dating isn't even secure on that. In fact, it's really just speculation and hypothesis as to whether it's that date or not.
An impact
so
crater
it's sort of a
that big.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Someone says, oh, here we've got, we have this hypothesis, here we find a crater, oh, that crater must be tied in with this hypothesis, it must date to that period. But you look at the actual data in the actual research paper, it doesn't say that at all. In fact, it's very ambiguous. I mean, the evidence is ambiguous as to what the date of that is.
Well, would an impact crater that big, would it cause the end of the last ice age, or would it continue the ice age?
Yeah. This is actually another thing that a lot of people get very confused by, and I'm glad you brought it up so that we can clarify it. Those that have suggested there was impact, a comet, meteor becoming a meteorite when it hits asteroid, that type of thing. Most talk in terms of a comet, maybe a breakup in the atmosphere and a bunch of particles coming down. That they're really referring to what's known as the Younger Dryas, the beginning of the Younger Dryas, 10,900 BC, and what you get from a feature like that, from an incident like that, impact, is usually, from what we understand of the past geological cycles, you get a cooling event because you put a lot of dust and debris into the atmosphere, you block out the sun, you essentially get a cooling event. And what you have at 10,900 BC is that the ice age was beginning to warm some, and then you have a cooling event for 1,200 years before you have the final snap out of the ice age at 9,700 BC. And what is interesting is that your 10,500 BC that you were just talking about, and a lot of people talk about, that's actually during the Younger Dryas. That's after the so-called comet impact, if there was a comet impact at that time, and it's before the ultimate end of the last ice age. So it's really, there's several different things going on there. But the bottom line is that even at 10,900 BC, and I've looked at the evidence very carefully, and I continue to look at it as more comes out, and I've been analyzing it. And at one point, I was convinced that there was a comet or impactor, but looking at the evidence critically, it's non-diagnostic, it's non-definitive in my assessment, in my opinion, and from my training, and it can point either to a comet or impactor or to the sun. And I believe now that all the evidence is pointing to the sun and solar events, everything from vitrified rock to nanodiamonds to shocked quartz, et cetera, can come from a solar event, a major, major solar event, the likes of which we've never seen in historical times. When the sun throws out huge balls of what are known as plasma, it's basically gases, if you would, or charged particles coming at us at relativistic speeds, hitting Earth. And in fact, interestingly, a solar event like that can carve craters. It can create craters. We know this from the moon. We know this from evidence that's coming from Mars now. So you can actually get what look like impact craters that most people conventionally would call, would say is the result of meteorites or comets or asteroids. You can actually get that from plasma discharges from the sun, from solar events too. So the bottom line is that some of the evidence is very ambiguous and non-diagnostic, but I do think we have other evidence that's quite distinctive and diagnostic and pointing to actually the sun being the main culprit as to what was happening at the end of the last ice age.
Okay, let's define, because we're going to spend so much time on this right now, let's define exactly what we're talking about. The comet, okay, if we're going to have some type of, cataclysm, some type of major event here. And, there's. I just want to point out that as we're talking about, there is lots of evidence of a major event at the end of the last ice age, the 9700 BC date I was talking about. You have an incredible, literally overnight, and this is based on sediment cores, Greenland ice cores, etc. You have incredible temperature changes at that time. You have in the geologic record earthquake activity, volcanic activity accelerated by orders of magnitude. You have evidence of, at 9700 BC, incredible extinction events of large mammals across the face of North America and around the world. So you have, and this is a little bit of the evidence, you have lots of evidence of something major happening then. You actually have extinction of humans, a die-off of humans and a restriction, and then you can see even in linguistic evidence how they were restricted to a small pocket and then spread out again. So there was a major cataclysm, a major catastrophe at the end of the last ice age. Now, what are we talking about here when we are dealing with temperature changes? We know about the woolly mammoth, and we know that they were frozen in spot, right?
In some cases. Now, that's a little earlier because then later we have a huge upswing in temperature. So that's what I'm saying. If you go back into the last ice age, there are several different things happening at different periods. I'm actually focusing more on the very end of the last ice age. But in terms of temperature changes, in some places locally, you could be talking several tens of degrees Fahrenheit change very, 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 literally overnight.
Up or down, though? That's what I'm asking. Because
and at the end of, within the ice age, for instance, when you began the Younger Dryas, you were going down, but that was less temperature difference than at the very end of the ice age when it went up dramatically.
And
you had virtually instantaneous melting, for instance, of glaciers, that type of thing.
Which is where I'm going. So when we're talking about a mile or two of ice, right, literally stacked up, to melt the ice, I would think that it would take, tens of thousands of years. I don't care how warm it is, but that certainly wasn't the case.
That was not the case. That's what you would think. That's what I used to think when I was a graduate student, and we used to laugh about, maybe, it only took a few centuries, ha, ha, ha. Well, we can't really say that because we'll all get flunked out.
Right.
Now we know that it literally happened. There's a paper that came out maybe 10 years ago that was talking about maybe it happened in 3 years, maybe 5 years, that type of thing, and that was like crazy talk, we thought. Now we know it literally happened overnight, and we have then sediment cores and ice cores, etc. When I say literally overnight, the resolution is such that you can see it happened within a couple of weeks, but the resolution isn't any better than that. And for all practical purposes, I mean, we're talking overnight. It probably literally was overnight. Now, how would you get that? It's not by all of a sudden warming the general atmospheric temperature by, how many degrees. Think of it this way. If you all of a sudden you take a blowtorch to something and you zap it with incredible temperature, with incredible heat, that will do it. And what we had, based on my reconstruction and other, especially astrophysicists, people like Dr. Anthony Perrott, or at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He's a plasma physicist who's been studying this. What we had was a major solar outburst, something that now some people are calling it is a micronova, the sun having gone micronova, just another way of saying the same thing, essentially. And we were hit in some cases locally by what would look like huge lightning, which can carry incredible temperatures locally. So lightning hitting something, literally zapping it, incinerating or, melting virtually immediately.
When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about just that. We need to take this a little bit further because I need my brain to be clarified. If we're talking about a comet, if we're talking about a meteor, some type of strike causing this, in my mind, it says temperatures being reduced. Well, if it's the other way around, where we're talking about a huge CME or solar flare, some kind of plasma activity, now that's the exact opposite. We're talking about temperatures being raised. And let's finish this conversation when we come back. I'm fascinated with this. Something happened, and it was right at that magical number. That magical number, 10,500, 9,700, 12,000 years ago. That's why Dr. Robert M. Schoch is here. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. More with Dr. Schoch right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. And last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Rhys Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert M. Schoch. Tomorrow night is Fader night, open lines all night long. And right now, we're going to continue the conversation that we left off with before the break, where we are talking about these solar events. And Robert, help me understand what we're talking about here. In this type of solar outburst or mini nova, I am picturing in my mind's eye a giant, active, bright cloud of plasma traveling across the solar system, and Earth happened to just be in the way. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's one way to picture it. So a couple of quick comments, because as you were leading into the last commercial break, you were talking about how a comet would make things colder, solar outbursts would make things warmer, or to put it another way, you were saying, well, is it cold or warm? The bottom line is, what we know geologically is that 9700 BC, we had a dramatic warming event. That's the end of the last ice age, etc. A comet would not do that. A meteorite or asteroid would not do that. It would generally make it colder, which is why some people have suggested there was one at 10,900 BC, because we have the beginning of a cooling event. But what's really critical, and where all the civilizations are brought to their knees and destroyed, where at the time when civilizations are brought down and destroyed, this earlier cycle of civilization, when we have the major extinction events, when we have all these other calamities, that's 9700 BC. That's a major warming event. Now, what you were just talking about, one way to picture it is this huge coronal mass ejection, this huge ball of plasma and that type of material, protons, electrically charged particles, electrons, hydrogen, etc., all hurtling toward the Earth. And included within this, especially if you have a major one, I just want to point this out, would be heavier elements also, residual heavier elements. So even things like iridium and platinum, you can get spikes because of this. So I just want to throw that out, because sometimes people say, well, we have an iridium or platinum spike, that must prove a meteorite. No, it doesn't. But this would be hurling toward the Earth. If we happen to be in the way, we would be hit. There are other scenarios, however, where the sun undergoes a major outburst, what's been sometimes known as a micronova or a mini nova, where in fact you get ejecta coming from the sun full spread, if you would, and everything is being hit, and there's no way for the Earth to realistically get out of the way or the other planets to get out of the way. So you have different types of solar outbursts. Either way, it could be devastating, will be devastating to creatures on the surface of the Earth, and this is exactly what happened based on the evidence in 9700 BC at the end of the last ice age.
Now, we have everything that is left behind that different researchers have been pointing to, which is, of course, the vitrified rock and the glass and the shocked quartz and nanodiamonds is the big, talk today.
Yeah, nanodiamonds, just if I could address that really quickly, nanodiamonds are the big talk of the day in some cases. Nanodiamonds are really poor evidence in most situations because nanodiamonds are actually quite common and they tend to collect as lag deposits. I don't mean to throw too much geology out, but you can think about it. Nanodiamonds are very hard. Nanodiamonds are just incredibly small microscopic diamonds, and you can get deposits or concentrations of nanodiamonds in all kinds of situations because they're left behind as a residue when everything else erodes away, or they collect as I said, lag deposits. Essentially, if you think of someone winnowing material or someone's panning for gold, but in a natural setting, you get certain things coming out and collecting, and you get that with nanodiamonds. So in some cases, you can have collections of nanodiamonds that actually are much, much older than the deposits they're found in. Then the other problem with nanodiamonds is nanodiamonds that appear to be caused by impactors may not necessarily be from impactors. There's evidence that they, with shocked quartz and other things of the same genre, I'll use that term, can be produced by lightning strikes, even conventional lightning strikes. And when we're talking about a solar outburst, you could think of an equivalent of lightning strikes, but many, many, many orders of magnitude more powerful. But even with modern lightning strikes in the last 2 or 3 years, there has been analysis and evidence indicating that when you look at the mineralogy of what's formed where a lightning hits rock, where it hits sand on a beach, etc., you get all these same features that people for so long thought could only be caused by physical impactors such as meteorites and comets and asteroids. Then I wanted to just mention before I forget, and you just brought up, vitrified rock. So for instance, in Egypt, in what's known as the Libyan desert, although it's actually Egypt, you get the Libyan desert glass that covers, literally spread out as a field of natural glass over about 2,500 square kilometers, if I remember correctly, a huge, vast area. The conventional view has always been, must have been a meteorite or something like that, but there's no crater, there's no evidence of actual extraterrestrial material. It's fused quartz and other things that were heated to an incredibly high degree to the point where they melted and then recongealed as glass. Well, a logical explanation when you start thinking about it and putting all the evidence together, this is what you would get during a major, major solar outburst, where this must have been an area where you had a direct plasma strike, if you would. And that's just one example. You've got another one, the so-called Dakhla glass in Egypt also, that covers another 400 square kilometers. And a lot of this glass, some of it looks like what people would expect glass to look like. Other looks more like what I would call slag deposits, where the rock has been melted, it sort of bubbles up and then recongeals as a very crude natural glass. And we're finding this around the world at this time period now, at the end of the last ice age.
Wouldn't there have been, well, you're going to answer this, I'm picturing if something like that occurs, wouldn't there have been massive fires? I mean,
absolutely,
just
and we have
earth.
evidence of that, massive fires at that time. Because in some cases it literally incinerated what was on the surface. So if you have volatile, burnable, combustible materials, you were setting massive fires. The other thing you have is massive flooding and massive rain, because you are melting so much water, whether it's hitting glaciers and essentially, vaporizing them immediately, hitting water, and vaporizing it, and plus the overall increased global temperatures, which would put a lot, put a lot more water into the atmosphere. The atmosphere can only hold so much water, so it comes back down as precipitation. And so you had massive flooding, massive rises in sea level along the coast, but surface flooding, inland flooding, flash floods, that type of thing.
So it's
you've got both going on at the same time.
Is it easy then for two different researchers to, I'm going to use the term wrong here, but have a misdiagnosis? Right? One being the possibility of an asteroid impact, and the other one...
Yes. I think it's absolutely easy for a misdiagnosis to occur, especially given that, and I am guilty of this in the past, and I'm probably guilty of it now, but I won't know that until the future and more evidence comes in. I'm not saying I'm guilty of what we're talking about right now, but little things.
Right.
For a long time, I looked at a lot of this data with the same lens, the same eyes, the same training, because I went to Yale for my PhD in geology and geophysics, as well as my master's degrees, as I heard you commented in introducing me, and we were all trained to look a certain way at things because we didn't know any better, essentially. When you saw certain types of things like vitrified rock or nanodiamonds or shocked quartz, the only logical conclusion one was taught is that must be some kind of impactor, asteroid, meteorite, comet. We weren't thinking about lightning. We weren't thinking about solar outbursts because we have no evidence of this in recorded history. Everyone was still thinking the sun is relatively stable. Nothing like this would ever really happen. So it wasn't even a possibility that we entertained.
How much warning do you have?
For me, once you start looking at that, all the evidence falls into place, and it explains everything so much better.
How much warning time do you have? You and I'm going to ask you this. When it happens again? Or back then. You and I are out at Göbekli Tepe, right? 10,000 years ago. You and I are performing a ceremony with some buddies, right? We're hanging out.
Yeah, we're performing a ceremony and looking at the sky, and then something happens.
How much time are we talking about here? Are we talking about seconds, minutes, or days?
No. Probably what you're talking about is you would see a flash. You would probably see solar flares, so these flashes of light, if it was daylight. Let's say it's daylight in the sun. So we're seeing the sun, and all of a sudden we see solar flares coming out. Those travel at the speed of light from the sun. So we're not seeing them in real time. We're seeing by a delay. What is that, 8 minutes or something?
Right.
But instantaneous for us as far as we're concerned. Now, based on the evidence we have for how fast coronal mass ejections can travel, how fast solar winds can travel, etc., once you see flares like that, you know that something's probably coming behind it, and that something is traveling at very high speeds, even relativistic speeds, close to the speed of light, but not at the speed of light. And answer to your question, it could be anywhere off the top of my head from 16 hours, if it was moving very quickly, that would be sort of typical, or maybe a couple of days.
Couple of days. And would it be enough
we're not
time?
talking a long time. And in the meantime, you've got solar flares. You've probably got things coming in between, what's sometimes known as solar particle events or proton events. So you've got different things moving at different speeds, from the speed of light for actual electromagnetic
To
waves
see it,
to
right.
particles traveling at various relativistic speeds. So you're getting pummeled by a number of different things. If we were back in Göbekli Tepe times, and we'll assume for a second that the Göbekli Tepe people did not have cell phones or the equivalent, did not have computers or the equivalent, they may have even a few days before it all hits and everything comes to be. If we're talking in modern times, your computers and cell phones and communication systems are going to start going down even before the final hit, even before the major coronal mass ejection. Am I making sense to you?
Yes, you are. And so do you and I have enough time to bury Göbekli Tepe, to save it?
This is another issue. What I believe was happening with Göbekli Tepe, and what I believe happens when you have these major solar outbursts, is you have a big one. And I think there was a really big one at the end of the last ice age. That's what we see as a huge spike. But what you also have in the geological record, in the ice core record, is a number of spikes after that of lesser intensity, but still coming. So the sun was very volatile. It was going through these up and down swings, if I could put it this way. And to use the geological analogy, it was like a major earthquake with aftershocks, and maybe even some foreshocks too, but aftershocks definitely. So what I believe we have at Göbekli Tepe, having analyzed it very carefully, is it was hit, parts were knocked down. That would have been due to probably the accompanying earthquakes, etc. And earthquakes are very strongly correlated with solar activity. We now know that even in the present day, and there are reasons for that. But I think that Göbekli Tepe was being hit. They were trying to quickly re-erect it, then they would get hit again, maybe a bit more minor solar outburst, and another coronal mass ejection coming in. And eventually it just got to be so much that I think the evidence indicates they were putting the pillars up, sort of very crudely into position and covered the whole thing over. So would they have time? Yes, but they were taking time from just trying to survive otherwise to bury it and preserve it, because it must have been incredibly important to them. But so it's not just one big fell swoop. Yes, it's one big fell swoop, but then there are what I call aftershocks, to use the geological analogy.
Now, what about...
I think that's when they were really trying to reconstruct and then ultimately buried Göbekli Tepe. Something else that I was just thinking of as we were talking about this, even in 1859, when we had the so-called Carrington event, when I say so-called, it's not so-called. It's named after Richard Carrington, who saw the first solar flares. And what I meant by the so-called was that the event, we call it the Carrington event. Actually, it was a couple of coronal mass ejections given off by the sun, one after the other. So it's like we were hit, and then we were hit again right after that. Now, when you have a major, major solar flare, or a mini nova or a micronova from the sun, we don't know exactly what it's going to be like. We haven't experienced this before, but it might even be, I'm speculating a bit here, but with reason, it may even be that it gives off, it's sort of like hiccups and hiccups again, and sneezes and hiccups again, so that we're getting pummeled by some in a row, separated by, maybe a few years or a decade, or maybe even only a few months.
What about going underground?
That's what you have to do. That's how people survived. There's no doubt that
Turkey?
Turkey, exactly. With Cappadocia.
Yep.
See, when we go to, have you been to Göbekli Tepe?
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to take a big trip to you and I and Rita and Katie and some Fadernauts, right? We'll go to Egypt. We'll go to Turkey. We'll go to Cappadocia. We'll go Göbekli Tepe. Now my tongue's getting tied. Cappadocia is incredible because you have all the underground cities there, but what is important to me is you have the right geological terrain. So you've got a fairly soft volcanic rock that's easy to carve into. Once you carve into it, it hardens, and would be incredibly good to survive underground from these type of surface events, because among other things, you would get very powerful solar flares and, as we said, coronal mass ejections, what would look like huge lightning bolts hitting, so it would protect from that. But you would also have radiation levels on the surface of the Earth, very strong radiation levels. We can estimate that they were strong enough that in some cases large mammals would die within 3 days to a week or so. Humans are large mammals. What's the best way to survive this, to get out of the way of the surface radiation, to go underground? Because the rock will protect you. This is very well known. People who worry about these things to this day, if they're going to protect their computers and whatnot, they put them in underground caverns and bunkers, that type of thing. The rock will protect from radiation. So going underground really is the way to go. And I want to point out that the underground shelters we're talking about, if you were talking about comet bombardments, it wouldn't help you at all because they would collapse under that type of bombardment. But from a solar event, they would be excellent. And we have linguistic evidence going back to the end of the last ice age that Indo-European languages, where did they originate from? They actually originated from Turkey, from the Cappadocia region. And that can be traced by looking at language families and sort of doing a genealogy of language and dating it to when various branches split off linguistically. And it's amazing. The people that have done these studies, linguists, they don't care about what I'm talking about, but they trace it back to a pocket of people that survived about 10,000, 9,700 years ago, not years ago, in BC, almost 12,000 years ago, to that region in Turkey, which is exactly where you find the underground cities. Now, I do want to point out, I know I'm saying a lot, but I always like to clarify things. These underground cities, there is no doubt they were used thousands of years later. The standard archaeologists will say to you, they might even say Schoch is crazy talking about this because they know that these were used 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, maybe 3,000 years ago. I've explored them. I've looked at them very carefully. Yes, of course they were used then. But that doesn't mean that's when the whole thing began. That doesn't mean that they weren't reusing something that was much older. And there's lots of geological evidence that these things go back much further in time than the standard historians say. For instance, they had to carve these out. They had to remove incredible amounts of rock. Where are the huge piles of rock that they removed? If they were only a couple of thousand years old at most, you would still have these huge piles of rock. But because they go back so far, I believe that rock has, weathered away and gone with the breeze, so to speak.
I have the same arguments when it comes to Giza and the Great Pyramids, and we'll discuss that in a second.
All these sites. Not all of them. Göbekli Tepe was not reused because it was buried and preserved.
Right.
But Giza, the Sphinx, Cappadocia, these were reused and venerated even for thousands of years later. So, it's. I don't want to say the obvious, but you go to the Colosseum in Rome. That was built in the 1st century A.D. 500 years from now, someone finds the coin that I dropped there, and they say, this is only 500 years old. That's nonsense.
That's right. And now, so the same evidence that we are talking about here at different sites around the world, I'm talking about the vitrified rock and the shocked quartz and the nanodiamonds, is this consistent around the planet? In other words, Dr. Schoch, could you go to Indonesia and go to the same time period and go through the layers of sediment and find the same evidence there of this at that time period as you would in North America or in Greenland or across Europe and Africa? Is the same evidence there consistently around the planet as opposed to being localized?
Yes, no. It's actually very consistent as I'm piecing it together around the planet, which also indicates that we're talking solar events. Because when you have a major solar event like this, it doesn't hit in just one spot. It actually plows into the Earth, plows into the magnetosphere, plows into the atmosphere, if you would, and it spreads around the globe. I mean, this is a way that electric currents are caused, carried, etc. And we find it consistently not only around the world, now as we know what evidence to look for, and that's part of the problem, to look for the evidence. So when I was a graduate student at Yale, we weren't thinking in these terms, and we weren't looking for this type of evidence. So, people don't realize this sometimes when they're not in the sciences, but maybe they realize it in real life. If you're not tuned into something, you're not looking for something, you often don't notice it. There's been all kinds of psychological studies about this for sort of ordinary things, and that's one reason eyewitnesses and courts and trials can be so far off, because they're looking you don't see what you're not looking for in many cases. But the answer to your question is yes, I'm convinced we're getting a very consistent picture around the world, and it's not just on Earth. So, for instance, we have to look at the moon, and the moon has evidence of this also. In fact, some of the earliest evidence for a major solar outburst was found by he's now deceased, unfortunately, but astronomer, astrophysicist, whose name was Thomas Gold, and he found, based on the Apollo missions, and what was that? Almost 50 years ago now. Right. The Apollo missions, vitrification and glazed lunar rocks, as he called it, that indicated there was a major solar outburst. And it actually makes sense in hindsight that you might recognize this on the moon first if you're not looking for it, because it's much more obvious on the moon, because the moon doesn't have much of an atmosphere at all, so things like this are preserved. One thing you have to realize, a lot of these features, especially vitrified rock, they break down in the atmosphere very quickly. They're not, I'm talking geologically, very quickly. They degrade, that type of thing. So he actually found evidence of this on the moon initially, and anything that is going to hit the Earth is also going to hit the moon. The moon is that close to us from an astronomical point of view, and it may or may not be the case, but what did the Chinese do just now? They went to the dark side of the moon, the back of the moon. I'm be interested to see what they find there, because, of course, as the moon goes around the Earth, that also faces the sun.
You know what they're going to find? They're going to find a McDonald's. That's what I heard. They photographed
a McDonald's on the moon.
Let's take a break.
Okay, so there we go. Evidence of this occurs all over the Earth and also on the moon, as does McDonald's.
We will continue the conversation. I'm trying to keep your tenure. We'll do this when we come back. It's Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Alpha the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up. Standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com, dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great conversation tonight. I expected this. It's Dr. Schoch. But a great conversation, and we are going to continue things right now. We are talking about the possibility of this cataclysmic event 12,000 years ago, 10,000 BC, or thereabouts, 10,500. As possibly being solar. And I have to ask you this, Robert. Let's back up a little bit here, or a lot. Something triggered this for you? There was some kind of epiphany in your life where you went, wait a minute.
There absolutely was, because I was not, and this ties in with what we were talking about, I was not thinking in terms of the sun. I was not thinking in terms of solar events, and I was perplexed by this, and the evidence for what was some people were interpreting as a comet or meteor. It didn't really make a lot of sense because that should cause a cooling event, not a warming event. It didn't seem that there was any direct evidence. It was all circumstantial. And what really turned things around was a trip to Easter Island. We went to Easter Island. Katie and I went to Easter Island. We were married on Easter Island. I think you may know that.
That's right.
And that was just an incredible trip. It was so much fun. And, of course, it's one of these places that has all kinds of ancient mysteries, the moai, the big heads and torsos, that type of thing. But something that Easter Island has is the Rongo script. It's sort of a hieroglyphic-type script. It's really interesting because, you know, linguists and whatnot have been trying to decipher it for 150 years or thereabouts, ever since it was discovered in the 1860s, 1870s, with no success. They can't even agree if it's really, you know, what kind of script it might be, if it is a script, et cetera, et cetera. So, to make a long story short, Katie and I were watching Electric Universe documentary, actually. And in that documentary, they mentioned someone who I had met before at conferences and spoken with, and that was Dr. Anthony Peratt at Los Alamos, who is this plasma physicist. I mentioned him briefly at the beginning of the show when we started our conversation, and something he had been studying was petroglyphs, ancient engravings on rocks, and what he found is that a certain class of petroglyphs that go back to the end of the last ice age, and that's my dating now, the end of the last ice age, these very ancient petroglyphs mimic or seem to be of the same diagnostic features and shapes as plasma configurations that he had been modeling in the laboratory that you would get when you had a major solar outburst. And how could this be coincidental? And what he determined, and I absolutely agree with, is that in ancient times when you had a major solar outburst, you would see things in the sky. Right now, people know about the aurora borealis, the northern lights. You have the same thing in the south. What this is solar winds, essentially plasma on a very small scale compared to what we had at the end of the last ice age, hitting the magnetosphere, hitting the atmosphere, interacting with the nitrogen and oxygen in the atmosphere, and you get these pretty lights, and oh, aren't they pretty? And you see them at high latitudes. But during a major outburst, as we had at the end of the last ice age, you would get things like the northern lights around the world because of the incoming coronal mass ejections, etc. And not only that, but with the incredible intensities of the outbursts, they would take on very diagnostic shapes that look like what some people call stick figures. Stick figure humans with little shapes or little donuts. It looks like it's known as synchrotron radiation. On the sides, you would get what would look like donuts or cascading cylindrical shapes. You would get, very importantly, what appears in the sky to be stick figure humans with the heads of birds. Again, we tend to anthropomorphize things, but you get these very specific images in the sky, these configurations, plasma configurations. He identified these on petroglyphs around the world in over 130 countries, he and his team. Katie was watching this while I was sort of distracted, and she said, "This looks like the Rongo script," and put it all together that we need to start looking at the sun. And the Easter Islanders, it wasn't an undeciphered script in the sense that they were writing stories and fairy tales or something like that, but they were recording what they saw in the sky during a major solar outburst at the end of the last ice age. What we have surviving are the Rongo, these inscriptions, these depictions, we believe, of plasma configurations that we're seeing in the sky and how they would change over time as the solar outbursts progressed, as coronal mass ejections came in. The physical Rongo is carved on wooden tablets, which were very valuable on Easter Island. They are copies of copies of copies. Even in the 19th century, when the Easter Islanders were questioned as to what these meant, they pointed to the sky. It had something to do with the sky. So the actual tablets don't go back to the end of the last ice age, but just as we don't have any Plato's manuscripts going back 2,300, 400 years, etc., we believe these are copies of what was going on. So it was really Katie putting this together with the work coming out of Los Alamos with the petroglyphs, and we had just gone to Easter Island this time. This was back 9-10 years ago, that she got me considering the sun, and that the sun is not as stable as everyone tends to believe. It's undergone these major solar outbursts, micronovae or mini-novae, as some people are referring to, and that we really had to look at this seriously. So the Rongo was actually pivotal, and interestingly, I will say this publicly, the Los Alamos team, members of Dr. Peratt's team, have since confirmed to us that they discovered the same thing. They agreed with us, with Katie's insight, but they had not published this. And in fact, this is part of the issue, because certain groups of people, not to get into conspiracy theories, but, this happened in the past. This could happen again. It will happen again. So, it's a little scary to some people. And I don't want to be a scaremonger, but I'm just looking at evidence.
Now, okay, all right, I want to almost stay on
Does that
Peratt.
all make sense?
Well, it does, and I want to stay on Peratt, but there's other stuff, too, as well. I'm looking at the clock, and you and I do this every single time, Robert.
Oh, we always
run
have
out of
too
time.
much to talk about. We'll continue another time if you like.
Well, because the Peratt confirmation for all of this is very, very important, and you need somebody like Peratt, a physicist, right, a plasma physicist, to come in who's already been doing the research to confirm this, and him taking a look at the Rongo and saying, hey, this is exactly what I've been seeing around the world too. It's nothing but more confirmation. But
that's right. And I want to make a quick point, if it's not obvious to all the listeners, because things aren't always obvious until hindsight. This is definitive of a solar outburst, solar activity, unusual solar activity. You don't get things like this from a comet or a meteor or asteroid hitting us, but you do get this from solar activity. So this is actually quite diagnostic of unusual solar activity.
Now, today, the reporting on this has been coming in pretty consistently over the last 3 years, and it's starting to get, for me, a little bit alarming. And I'm talking about the pole shifts and this magnetic action that is going on right now. Can you help me understand?
Yes. Well, I mean, no one really understands what's going on in the terms of the geophysics or astrophysics. But what we know is that solar activity influences geophysical activity. So the sun and the dynamics of the sun have incredible effect on our magnetosphere and on our magnetic pole, and also earthquake activity and volcanic activity. All of this has an electrical component to it, to put it very simply, and a magnetic component to it. So the weakening of the poles, and it has been very dramatically weakening over time. It's become unstable. It's moving. A lot of people suggest that we may go into a magnetic pole reversal, in which case, we may lose our magnetic field for a short period of time. When I say short, I don't know how long, but I'm talking geologically short. We know from the geologic record that the magnetic pole of the Earth has flipped a number of times, reversed a number of times, gone down to zero. If we have a weakening shield, magnetic shield, if the pole flips, if it weakens, if it continues to weaken as it is now, that makes us more vulnerable to outside radiation, more or less from outside of the Earth system, more vulnerable to attacks by the sun. I don't want to say the sun's being bad here, but, if it undergoes a solar outburst or when it does. So this is all becoming quite critical, and you and I think have spoken about this before, but our civilization is so vulnerable to these types of events, and we're so dependent on electronics and GPS systems and all this type of thing, communication systems, that even now we are feeling the effects of that. Even minor solar flares cause transformers to blow and parts of grid systems to go down temporarily, or for computers to crash in, some airport, no flights can go out. We're just starting to get a sense of how devastating this could be or will be to our civilization.
Is it, I was reading...
I sound like a fearmonger, and I don't mean to be.
But we can't control our planet.
We have to be realistic. We should just close our eyes to this.
No, we can't control Gaia. We can't control Mother Nature, whether it's off planet or...
And Sol, the sun. We can't control our sun.
Now, I was reading last week that it possibly has something to do with the flow of molten iron.
Yes.
And that flow, I'm almost picturing a river, right?
Yeah.
Has changed directions. And right now, our magnetic pole is like, it's almost in Siberia now.
Yeah. It's really changing, and we may be changing directions, but that flow, because it's flowing, it's moving, so it's got electric and magnetic currents in it, that is interacting with the rest of the solar system, the main influencer being the sun. Plus, there are potential other, our solar system is a little, you and I have talked about things like this before, a little teeny, like a little, just compared to the rest of the galaxy, much less the universe. So there's all these various factors that, some of which we probably can't even imagine at the moment, that can be influencing us. But the sun is definitely a big one. And we really don't understand the internal dynamics of the Earth or the sun. And, I don't want to sound the wrong way, but I've got a PhD in geology and geophysics. I'm not ignorant of these things, but I am aware of what we are ignorant of.
Is the timing of these events consistent?
There have been people that have been looking for cycles in this. This has actually become very popular in recent years and decades, and I don't want to be too definitive about this right now, but I suspect that there is a cycle of about, I hate to put it this way, but about probably 12,000 or so year. If you know what precession is,
we do.
The precessional cycle is probably on a half precessional cycle. This precessional cycle is about 24 to 26,000 years. We're probably talking major incidents like this every half precessional cycle. And there are various potential reasons for that, with the sun destabilizing, calibrating, re-equilibrating again. I don't want to be too definitive when it comes to such things, but we're probably due right now for another, we'll call it solar correction, to sort of play off the stock market when it corrects itself. And we have evidence, very direct evidence, of solar activities from the end of the last ice age up to the present. The sun was very unstable, agitated, a lot of solar events, major flaring, that type of thing at the end of the last ice age, just what we've been talking about in major solar outbursts, of course, that end of the last ice age. It was still fairly unstable, although calming down for the couple of millennia post end of the last ice age. Then it went into a quite stable period for thousands of years, and that's when civilization re-emerged from what Katie and I call SIDA, or the solar-induced dark age. So from 9700 BC to about 3700 BC, I'm using those numbers specifically so we have about 6,000 year period, just so people can grasp onto that. So for about 6,000 years, we had what we call dark age, or solar-induced dark age, because it was brought by the sun, bringing down that early cycle of civilization. Then by the 4th millennium BC, 3700 BC, just to use round numbers, we have a reemergence of civilization in Sumer, in Egypt, in the Far East, that type of thing, and civilization flourishes, and the next thing you know, you've got cell phones and computers, and you and I talking on the radio, et cetera, et cetera. But what has happened in the last 100 years, and especially the last few decades, is the sun has started to destabilize again, and we're seeing solar activity and inactivity. It goes both ways. It gets very active, then it sort of goes dormant, then it gets very active again. And we're seeing this anomalous behavior in the sun, which we haven't seen for
ever
8, 10,000, 12,000 years.
Right.
Yeah, no, we've never seen it in historical times. You know, if the sun had been acting like this for the last 200 years, we wouldn't have gotten to the point where we've gotten technologically, because it would have knocked us out periodically.
Are you suggesting that, Dr. Schoch, are you suggesting that through ice core samples and sediment layers around the world that every 12,000 years that this evidence is there?
Yes. I mean, this needs more analysis. I always couch myself, just like we were talking about. What did you say? You were making fun? Not making fun of me. You were commenting on my language. Maybe
sort of, maybe.
Sort of, maybe.
Sort of,
yeah,
maybe.
But hey, yeah. So I mean, I don't want to be too definitive on this because I still want to look at more evidence. But it's certainly suggestive this way. The evidence I'm seeing that we have a star, which, like any other star, this is our sun, and the sun can be defined as a star with planets around it. So we've got a sun that behaves like most other stars behave, and they're not always perfectly stable and beautiful, and they're this Aristotelian ball of fire that's unchanging and perfect. I mean, that's what people have thought for thousands of years. Well, no, it's not the case. The sun goes through these cycles, and I think we may be, I believe personally, based on the evidence, that we're at the verge of a new cycle, and it could be catastrophic for us on planet Earth today. Something that Katie and I always think of when we think about these things, and I'll just throw it out now. Not only do we have all this sophisticated technology with GPS and satellites and communications, and I think it was a big mistake personally, we have around the world nuclear power plants, and those will be devastated by a solar outburst. We saw what happens with just a little earthquake and whatnot, tsunami with Fukushima.
Are there other geologists around the world that are coming up with these same ideas and research as yours?
Yes. When you start looking at things like geophysical research letters and whatnot, it's starting to come together. Now, like anything, unfortunately, in the sciences, a lot of people tend to be science breeds incredible specialization. So something that I've always been, to a certain extent, is not only having my own specialties, but also trying to synthesize and look at the bigger picture as we're talking about now. So a lot of it, what happens is that you get one paper that's talking about earthquake anomalies and how they correlate with solar flares or solar activity. Another one looking at specifically the changing magnetic pole. Another one, basically talking about all the little details we've been talking about. And part of what I find fascinating is synthesizing this all together. And also realizing in some cases it's you get a specialist, they can look at one little piece, but they don't put it into the bigger picture. And I sometimes wonder if it's almost too scary to do that.
And what about the cross-pollination of this with other types of research, like astrophysicists and theoretical physicists that are looking at our solar system and the universe? Are they seeing these same things out of the sun? In fact, what we're finding, for instance, this is very interesting, we're finding more and more evidence that other stars are just like the sun, that the other stars, they undergo these outbursts, again, to use a term that some people are using, micronovae or mini-novae, and some of them are on very regular basis, as our sun may prove to be. So they're not huge. People used to think in terms of nova. A star going nova, it destroys all the planets in its solar system. If there are planets going around, it just fries them completely. No, we're talking something different where it's much more minor from an astrophysical point of view, but of course major for anything on the planet, life on the planet. So we're finding, I think, more and more evidence astrophysically, and if you start looking up, there's a lot in journals about this, buried in journals about other stars that are doing just what I'm talking about for the sun. And again, to me, that as a scientist, that's sort of comforting that we're not talking about something weird and extraordinary when you look at the big picture, more or less, other stars out there, other planetary systems. Let's take a break right here and let's get into a little bit of overtime, Dr. Schoch. And I'm going to, when I come back after the break, I'm going to take Dr. Schoch out of the box. And I do this every single time he's on the show. We'll see if I can get him out of the closet. This will be number 8, Robert, if you think about it. We'll be right back. We'll be right back after this short break. Our guest, Dr. Robert M. Schoch. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. An amazing conversation with Dr. Robert M. Schoch tonight. Moving into overtime period. And this is, if you were me, if you were I, and you were sitting with a geologist, somebody that, a professor, a PhD in geology, right, from Boston University, you would ask the questions that I am about to ask. So, Robert, let me get the thought out, and then I want your reaction, okay? And it's this. I'm going to get you to come out of the closet. Here we go.
Uh-oh. Well, I don't know.
And it's
you might
this.
not.
I've been very successful with you. It's this. This is the thought. If the pyramids were built at 2600 BC, I'm talking about the plateau right there. Mm-hmm. We got 3 pyramids. The first two, the 2 biggies, 2.5 million blocks each. Based on that and the pure logistics there and the manpower, the amount of stones that were cut, that's one thing. But there is something missing from the Giza Plateau. There should be ginormous garbage pits full of fish heads, full of copper chisels, full of pigs' bones and cow. There should be garbage there that would be astronomical, and it's not. And the reason why I'm concerned about that is that if it was at 2600 BC, then this debris, everything that would be involved with that kind of manpower would be left behind and there as evidence, and it's not. Why?
Well, I mean, you're asking me because I think a lot of this goes back much earlier. This actually ties in with what we were talking about before. Remember when we were talking about the underground cities, and
That's
I was
right.
making the same point, that you would pull out so much debris and whatnot, building these huge underground cities. You'd have to bring that to the surface. You'd have huge piles of it. That's all dissipated away. It's all gone to the wind, so to speak. It's weathered away. What you have at the Giza Plateau is a little bit different situation, and I've actually contended this for a long time, that many of these structures, at least their origins, I don't deny 2600 BC. I don't deny that the ancient dynastic Egyptians were using the plateau, that they were carving some tombs there even, that they were using the structures, they were repairing the structures. There's direct evidence of that. They were repairing the Sphinx. They recarved the head. I'm convinced they were doing things with the Great Pyramid and Second Pyramid and Third Pyramid. But they weren't the originators of all these structures, and not only do you have a situation where any original garbage and debris, as you were talking about, would have long wasted away, would have weathered away, disintegrated, that type of thing, but you had all these other guys using the plateau, and I'm not saying they were neat freaks, but they would have cleaned up some of this. They probably moved some of it out of the way. And we actually have a lot of evidence that that's exactly what happened. So I'll give you an example. The Giza Plateau 2,000 years ago in ancient Roman times was highly venerated. It was used. People visited it. We know that there were all kinds of Roman structures, steps and pathways, that type of thing. Where are they now? They were actually all removed in the last 2,000 years. So it's undergone a number of changes, and a lot of that debris, I'm sure, was removed purposefully when it was being reused for other purposes, etc., besides having simply decayed away.
Because the reason why I think this is such an important point is that your classic Egyptologist, their argument doesn't hold water. And one of the other things that I pull into play here is simply population. And when you go and you look at the population curve, and you can find these charts all over the internet about how many people lived in ancient Egypt at this time, every man, woman, and child from the Mediterranean to the origins of the Nile going into Ethiopia was put to work. And, that wasn't even enough.
It's insane.
Right.
Yeah, they were all put to work. They were all doing this. I don't know how they got anything else done if that was the case.
I mean, it's one of the things that they avoid in this conversation.
No.
You know,
it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it makes a lot more sense, I think, from a logistic point of view, that these things go back much earlier, and frankly, they span a longer period of time as far as construction and rebuilding, that type of thing.
When you go and if you look at, this is what I find fascinating, right? You go and you look at a chart of the pyramids from Saqqara all the way to Giza, and you look at the amount of pyramids and you look at the size of them, and they're trying to tell you that this went down in 150 years, right?
No, it's like, crazy.
It's like, stop with that. It's impossible. There wasn't enough people there to do this.
I agree with you.
I don't understand that part.
Plus, it's not just what you see on the surface, but there's a lot under the surface, and I mean that in a double way. One, there are structures. For instance, I'm convinced that Hawar in particular, this is a site that I'd like to get into more, especially if I could do it through Oracle, the Organization for the Research of Ancient Cultures. It's one of the projects we'd like to do. There's evidence of essentially what's been called a labyrinth outside in the area, outside the pyramid there. But that's Hawara. At Saqqara, for instance, there are huge underground, not exactly a city, but underground chambers and whatnot, which would have been a huge feat to carve out, independent of the pyramid that you see on the surface. So there's a lot going on, and it really boggles the mind. And I absolutely agree with you. It doesn't make sense that this all happened within a very short period during dynastic times.
It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just talking about the logistical part. Look, we can talk about the amount of rocks that were carved. We can talk about the weight of the red granite, and traveling 500 miles and how did they pull that? Well, okay, all right, that Aswan. Yes, I understand all of that. But for me, I just step back and I go, wait a minute, 2.5 million stones. That means copper chisels, which wouldn't work. Well, you're talking many copper chisels per block, not one per block, right? Now, we're talking about a huge amount of copper, a huge amount of where is everything?
No, it just doesn't. It doesn't work. The logistics don't work. See, this is, I think, one of the problems too. The Egyptologists have done a certain number of, I guess, experimental archaeology is what we can call it. That's a term they often use. Okay, so you take a copper chisel and you chip out one little block, and you have to keep re-honing your copper chisel because it's bending on you and whatnot. And then you, off camera, you cheat and use some power tools. I mean, they really do this.
They do this, yes. I've
seen
it.
And then, lo and behold, for National Geographic or whatever special, I don't want to, belittle National Geographic, so maybe it wasn't them, but whatever, they do a special, and they show how they did it with ancient tools. Well, what have they really done? They've cut out a couple of blocks, they've cheated a little bit on the side. It doesn't really demonstrate anything, and especially not when you scale it up to what really happened in ancient times, and you look at the real structures. Millions of blocks, as you say, the logistics don't work.
No, and I know I'm being a little juvenile here in how I'm trying to present this, but I have studied it a lot.
It makes the point. It makes the point.
Yes, because if you sit there with a modern situation where you've got cameras rolling and you are demonstrating that it takes a day to carve one of these blocks, right? Well, wait a minute here. That tips everything over. It doesn't make any sense because this is supposed to be 25 years in a period where these blocks were quarried and placed every 2.5 minutes.
Every stonemason and specialist in such things that I've ever interacted with, in some of the cases, they sort of try to support the standard story, and they say, oh, yeah, I could do that, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you talk to them further about how long it would take them to do it, how much it would cost in modern money, and also what tools they're using, et cetera, and you put it together, I come to the same conclusion that you're driving at. It doesn't really make sense to extrapolate this back into dynastic times and say that they did it.
Now, when are we going to get to...
They did that the way the standard Egyptologists and historians claim.
Now, when are we going to get to the bottom of the library, the Chamber of Secrets underneath the Sphinx?
This is very, very important. That's under this. You're going back in time for me personally, but also forward in time, because there is that chamber under the left paw of the Sphinx that Thomas DeBecke and I found with geophysical techniques back in the early 1990s. The Egyptian authorities have wanted to sort of squelch this and whatnot. To my knowledge, yes, there's lots of rumors. People argue that, maybe they've already gone into it. I don't see any good evidence of that, but it is there. And as you know, we have the textual evidence now with Methead being the guardian. Methead She was a lioness. That was the original incarnation, the original version of the Sphinx, guarding the archive underneath her, under the left paw. So I am doing everything I can, working a way to raise money and get permission to explore that further. Let me put it that way. And this will be a major discovery, potentially. When we finally get in there, I mean, we don't know what's going to be in there, but I think it could be incredibly significant. So it's going to take money and cooperation.
Does the government there know that there is something underneath the Sphinx? I mean, do they know?
Yes, absolutely. I turned over all the raw data, etc., to the Egyptian government. They're aware of the raw data. I've spoken with authorities there. Some of them have, Zahi Hawass. We don't need to get into him now. He's denied that there's anything there, even though he had all the raw data. But times change. Different people are now in the top positions. And I think there's a new openness and willingness potentially to explore further. And so I want to stay very positive, very hopeful that we'll have a chance to explore the chamber.
And the Grand Museum is, yes. I've been waiting for this. Now, I thought it was going to be open last November.
Yeah, I'm told that it may be open this summer. And part of the question is, so for those that don't know, it's the brand new multi, I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars museum that they're building to house all of the, well, not all of them, but, the major antiquities, the beautiful statuary, etc., that is now currently in the Old Cairo Museum, the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, which is a beautiful building itself, but it goes back to, late 1800s, early 1900s, somewhere around there, turn of that century. But it's, it's old sort of Victorian style, to put it crudely, and they are building this beautiful new modern museum, state-of-the-art. Katie and I had the opportunity to speak with the director at length when we were there on one of our trips to Egypt. He showed us parts of it that have been completed. Something that they did, which makes a lot of sense, is they completed their conservation restoration portions first so that they can conserve and protect the antiquities before they put them on display. It's going to look out to the Giza Plateau, so there'll be essentially like a big window on one part of the museum where you can actually look out and see the pyramids. Not that's that close to it. It's not going to obscure the plateau. And
it's pretty close. It's pretty close. What? I'm looking through the windows here.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
It's
yeah,
right
it's pretty
there.
close. But
yeah.
What I'm saying is I don't think you can see when you're on the plateau. It's not like all of a sudden this big building is looming and now making the pyramids look bad.
Right.
That was my point.
Right.
I think they're doing a very good job with it. It's incredible what they're doing and very well designed. It's going to be gorgeous, I believe. And something that the director said to us is it's not just for tourists. In fact, it's not even primarily for tourists. Yes, of course, they like tourists and they're very proud of their country and the scheme of the world. But he also impressed to us that he wants it for the Egyptian people to understand their own heritage and to appreciate their own heritage, which I think is wonderful.
$750 million spent so far. And they're
how much?
$750 million.
Okay, that makes sense. I believe that. Yeah, I didn't realize it was quite that high already. They're putting a lot into this.
I heard some numbers last week. I was watching a documentary on the construction, and they are actually comfortable in saying $1.1 billion when it's all said and done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually. And that's a lot of money, especially in Egypt.
It's huge, and
so it's huge. But I think it's well worth it. what can you say? It's Egypt, and they have some of the most incredible antiquities, and it makes sense, in my opinion, to conserve them properly, to preserve them properly, and to display them in the best way possible.
So what's up next for you, not only for research and your trips, but everything else? What's on the horizon?
Well, the research continues, the trips continue, but that ties in with the research. And something, we mentioned this very briefly, that I'm very excited about is doing a documentary with Jim Fields. And we hope to start shooting part of that, at least preliminarily, in Egypt this summer. And this is being done with the Organization for the Research of Ancient Cultures, which is a nonprofit, fully government-approved, should we say, nonprofit organization that I am a founding member of, but other people, of course, are involved, and we have a board of directors, that type of thing. But we're going to do this documentary, we hope, and we also want to raise money for research, including some of the projects we've been talking about during the conversation today. So I hope that, I know you have always links from your website, but I hope that people will go to my website, robertschoch.com, and look at the links, look at the, really, they can get information there as to what's going on and the latest developments, and there's links to Oracle and the projects. So I'm excited about all this. I think we have a very bright future.
Now, we're going to see you next month, and I'm very excited about this. You and Katie
Oh, yeah, that'll be great.
You're heading out
Conscious
west.
Life Expo.
Conscious Life Expo. What are you going to be speaking about this time around?
Boy, I have to think about that, don't I? I think I think some of the things we've been talking about during this conversation, to elaborate on that, I'll come back to Egypt and Turkey, and really I think probably what I'll focus on is the end of the last ice age and all the new evidence that is accumulating for incredibly sophisticated cultures and civilizations around the world, but also the warning of, what happened to them and how we need to learn from that.
Well, safe travels coming out here, and the links for Robert's website are right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Do go and check out Oracle. I believe your Egypt tours, your 2 trips out, those are both sold out?
Those are both sold out at the moment. But what I would do is encourage people to get on my personal mailing list. So when you go to Robert Schoch, and everyone should know how to spell my name, Schoch, robertschoch.com, you can sign up for my personal mailing list. Go to the contact page, and it'll give you information. But also go to Oracle's website, and there's a link from my website, and get put on the Oracle mailing list. Because even though the current Egypt trips are sold out, the board of directors of Oracle has already been discussing possibility of future trips, not this year, but in coming years, and not only to Egypt, but maybe other places as well. Because that's part of the educational mission of Oracle, to take people to some of these sites, because there's, you can read about them all you want. You can look at YouTube videos and documentary specials, etc. But there is really nothing like going to see them for yourself and experiencing them.
Yeah, I don't know
for yourself. I'm not criticizing you, Jimmy. I know you'll come to Egypt with me sometime.
This is the thing.
I'm just saying, for the general person, if they can make it work for them, it's great to visit the sites. Now, not everyone can, for various reasons, whether it's personal or financial or whatnot, and I understand that. So, I'm not criticizing anyone, but if people have a chance, it's always fun to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, there's the King's Chamber, and there's Giza and the Great Sphinx, but getting off of the plateau, I don't know. And Luxor, and I get all of that. But for me, the Serapeum, of course. But I think I want to go to Edfu.
Edfu's incredible.
I know,
Edfu's incredible.
And that's not on the top of every...
Simbel and Philae.
Right.
There is so much in Egypt. So much in Egypt. So if people have a chance, but the second best thing, it is really incredible what we can do now with modern technology. If people get a good sense of it from videos and that type of thing. And I've had people that travel with me and they've watched a lot of videos and whatnot. And actually I encourage people to do that, whether they whether they can travel to Egypt or not, because those that can't, of course, that is the next best substitute. But those that do travel, for instance, with me or whatever, if you familiarize yourself with a site well ahead of time, and you get that much more out of it. So it works both ways.
Absolutely. Well, safe travels for you and Katie, and give her my best.
Thank you.
And we'll break bread in about a month. I can't believe it. We'll see you guys out here in California.
It'll be great to see you, and I hope everyone can make it there. That
the Conscious Life Expo, we're talking about 15,000 people.
Yeah, huge.
It's just a huge event, and what you want to do, everybody, is go up to Robert, take a picture of him, and make him take a picture of you, and you guys do it together. That's that.
This is true. This is true.
Safe travels to you and Katie, and we'll see you guys shortly.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Robert. Have a great rest of your night.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Robert M. Schoch, and it's robertschoch.com, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go and do it. Check out Oracle. His trips right now are sold out. But it's Dr. Robert Schoch, and you would expect that. But he will be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo next month here in Los Angeles, and you can go to the Conscious Life Expo banner right there at jimmychurchradio.com and go and check all of that out right there. Tickets info, full conference schedule is right there. Nassim Haramein, of course, Linda Moulton Howe, Eric Von Daniken, George Norrie. It's a full weekend of events. You're going to want to go and check it out right now. Now, I mentioned earlier at the front of the show, before I get out of here, one of the things that I am going to present tomorrow, there are two things I'm going to set up for Fader Night. One of them is CERN and their plans right now for a new collider. And the current one, which is the largest thing that was built on planet Earth, that you think about the engineering that goes behind it and what they are doing with it. It's the design and the implementation of the LHC. It is incredibly huge, the most complex, crazy thing that humans have ever built. They are going to take that times 100. Now, think about that. Now, I'm going to go over all of that tomorrow. And the other thing that I am going to lay out for you tomorrow is how much data do you create every single day? How much data do you create? Not the data that you might be thinking about, like writing the annual report for your brokerage firm, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about data that is created by you automatically, and you don't even know about it, right? That kind of data. Do you have any idea about this? Well, you probably don't. So tomorrow, I'm going to help you understand all of this, because first, there is your cell phone, a smartphone. There's your tablet. There's your laptop. There is your car, and Google. And with Google, that means Chrome. That means Android. And data is, you create data every second of the day. And you don't have any idea about how much data is actually collected. So tomorrow, I'm going to give you the full report. I'm going to tell you how much data. I'm going to tell you where it's going. I'm going to tell you what kind of data and how much that is collected in a 24-hour period. It is unbelievable. So I'm going to set that up for tomorrow night, for Fader Night, and we will discuss this. It's a very important report. That combined with CERN, and throw all of that into one big pile and add on your phone calls. So that's what's going to go down tomorrow night, Fader Night. With that, I want to thank Dr. Robert M. Schoch for another great conversation. And, of course, I've got to get out of here because there is food at my house right now waiting for me, and I can't wait to get home. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboys, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll see everybody tomorrow night right here for Fader Night. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until then, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.